Hi, you are watching episode number 32 of the Emotional Freedom Podcast. And in today's episode, I'm doing a follow-up on yesterday's episode, which was all about parts therapy. And in today, I want to talk more with you about the inner child, particularly what to do when you have a wounded inner child. So stay tuned. Hey, I want to warmly welcome you to the Emotional Freedom Podcast. Now, my name is Luke Bong. I'm your host, and I'm an accredited NLP trainer and a certified clinical hypnotherapist. Now, yesterday we talked about parts therapy, and just to do a quick recap, why parts therapy is something that we would do with clients or patients. You see, whenever you have got things that have happened to you, and you have got an unnatural or unwanted or unconscious response, which you later regret, chances are it could be because one part of you is acting up. And why is it that that part is acting up? And the reason is because there is inner conflict that is going on between the different parts that we play. And I explained in yesterday's episode that how those different parts in you were developed. Now, I said that earlier in yesterday's episode that those parts are not things that you can, install or take away or buy parts and put it in you. So those are not physical parts, but those are parts that exist in your inner world, your psychic, so-called. So if you want to learn more about those parts, then please listen to episode number 31, which was yesterday. So today I want to focus more on something that usually we notice as therapists, we notice that that is the one that created the problematic behavior in adults. And what I'm talking about would be a person's inner child. Now, what exactly is an inner child? Now, one of the things that all adults can testify to is that they were once a child. Okay, I know that's a silly statement because everyone was once a child. And that's the thing. You see, no two childhood are exactly the same. You have got people who grow up in a very happy childhood. You have also people who grow up in a childhood that has been abusive, that has been neglect. And the thing about being a child is that a child is like a sponge. And what I mean by that is the child just absorbs everything that is going on around him or her at that age. And if a toxic programming, something that is not good, has been put into the child's psychology, in their inner world, their mind, very often the child will just grow up with that toxic programming. So much so that it goes unquestioned, it goes unchallenged, and it becomes a belief, which is none other than something that a person perceives as the truth, and usually is unquestioned. So that is why if a person has got an inner wounded child, what may happen would be that this person may encounter problematic behavior or problematic responses when certain situations are triggered. So I give you one example, and this is something for myself. I remember when I was still in primary school, I think I was just probably primary 1 or primary 2. That means that it's about age 7 or 8. There was this time whereby my dad had my dad's birthday, and I didn't have money to buy anything, so I decided to draw a beautiful birthday card for him. I remember I spent many hours drawing that card, and I drew Scooby-Doo. Okay, so I was looking at some of the pictures from the books, comics, and all that, and I just drew it out, colored it, and wrote "Happy Birthday, Dad." I felt so proud of it because I spent so much of time drawing it. I make sure it looked exactly the same like the cartoon. And when I gave it to Dad that evening, now what happened was Dad took it, he looked at it, and he said that, son, you are now growing up. Don't do childish things like this. Do something more practical. And I remembered the first feeling I felt was it was stinging. It was very, very painful. And if ever any adults, right, think that children don't feel those things because they are just a child, don't allow those, those lies to don't believe those lies, what I'm saying. Okay, the reason is because what matters here is that very often, things that we do unconsciously, things that happen to us unconsciously, those are the things that have impacted us a lot. Now, back to what happens to when my dad actually said that to me. You see, what happened then was those words that sting very painfully at that time, even though I don't realize it, it stayed with me for a long, long time. It stayed with me even until adulthood. And that's how serious it was. Because even up to adulthood, I began to question myself whether or not the things that I do, is it worthy? Is it worthwhile? Is it good? Will it be appreciated? And I mean, we can't, we try to think positively to overcome all those things, but sometimes, those things just come to haunt us without us realizing it. Now, that is just one example of an inner child. Now, another example where an inner child can be wounded would be there are some people where, as adults, they lack self-confidence. They don't think that they have something useful to say, and they will always keep on thinking about what if they make mistakes and things like that. Now, recently, I was just helping a client who actually experienced this because she was a very bright woman. She was very helpful, very caring, and she is very talented. But somehow or another, her conscious mind says that yes, she agrees with all of that, but whenever she tries to step out to actually pursue all these things, she will be hearing her mom's voice telling her, what if you fail? Who do you think you are? Do you think you are really that good? Or are you just trying to lie to yourself? Now, those are the things that goes on in her today, and it's affecting her career. It's also affecting her behavior as a parent, because she doesn't want to do that to her own child. And yet she finds that that is what she is doing to her own child. And the reason was because inside her, an adult, inside her body, there is still this inner child that has been hurt and that has been wounded. Now, in today's episode, I just want you to pause for a moment to think about what are the behavior that you have today, which is, you can tie it back to your inner child. How your inner child has been mistreated, how your inner child has been, deprived of certain emotions or certain feelings, which have ultimately resulted in you being the person that you are today. Now, so how is it that you have an inner child? Well, let me just share with you that every one of us, we have inner children. As a trainer, I do a lot of trainings, and most of the trainings I do, in fact, all of the training that I do are with adults. Would you believe me if I tell you that when adults, they come to the training program, they come in very seriously and all that, but the moment we start to play games which are like so crazy, but yet those games are meant to teach a certain principle, you will find that these serious adults with serious looking faces, they transform into children, and they play as if like they are kindergarten children. They're so happy, they just laugh. And after the game is over, after the training is complete, they go back to becoming the serious adult again. So I'm more convinced than ever that every one of us, we have that inner child. And if that inner child is not taken care of properly, if that inner child is the issue or the hurt is not resolved properly, it is just very easy for those inner child issues to come up later to actually affect an adult. It affects every single aspect of adulthood. Now, in tomorrow's episode, I'm going to talk about what are the causes for inner child problems, and we are going to explore how an inner child gets wounded. All right, so that will be tomorrow's episode. I hope you'll join me, and I hope you have found this episode useful, and thanks so much for joining me today. I'll see you tomorrow.